Okay, right, ladies and gentlemen, Steve Brookes.
For those of you who don't know me and have seen the adverts going about with my picture on, it is me, honest. Alright, but I was hoping in actual fact that when Rosemary comes later, she's got a Spix Macaw on her head as well. And that, but we will see. Right, rightly as Alan said, I do quite a number of tours around, mostly South and Central America, although I have done Australia as well. And but my main interest and focus is on South and Central America. So what I'm going to try to do is actually take you through a few questions that people ask me about my tours and what we do, where we stay, etc, etc, and hopefully somewhere in there I've got a few parrot photos as well. Now on my trips, and I've been doing these trips since the year 2000, when I was invited on one with a friend of mine from Denmark, and that got me totally hooked, so I've been doing it ever since. So I've got in the region of 500,000 photographs from my tours and over 1,000 video clips. So we're here for a long stay, all right? Yeah, it's very difficult putting something like this together to actually get everything and hopefully answer a lot of questions. So, where we stay. This one is Posada Amazonas in Peru, and bedrooms are out, no windows, direct onto the Amazon rainforest there, but the rooms have got mosquito nets over the beds, that type of thing, so completely safe. This one is an actual family room there, and that's one of the lodges you would stay at if you moved on then to Tambopata Lodge, which is further down. Completely sort of different lodge there. It's a little bit more remote. If you go from Puerto Maldonado, it takes about 9 hours total by motorized canoe to get there. So it's quite a long trip. That's why there's a couple of lodges that you can do, one on the way there and one on the way back to split it up. And they also have clay licks at them as well. And that's a typical sort of group we have there. This is another lodge, which is Heath River Lodge. Actually, it's in Bolivia, but it's on the border of Bolivia and Peru, and the clay licks there are actually in Peru, but the lodge is in Bolivia. So, but it's a very short journey across. And the sort of common areas there, which are netted and screened for mosquito proofing, and the individual cabins there for actually staying in. A little bit bigger lodge because that's closer to the main areas, Sandoval Lake Lodge. So it's a bigger lodge, more easily get atable, so a lot more people stay there rather than going to the remote one. And that's Sandoval Lake itself. In this is in Venezuela, in the Orinoco Delta, another part of the rainforest there, and that's the sort of lodge there, which you get with all the little cabins that are along the waterfront there, and it's all, there's no roads there at all, it's just purely by river. You can't get about by road at all. This is in Guyana, so this is one of the little places we would stay, and at this particular one it's a place where we can go to see the sun conures, which are very rare there. Monastery, this is in Brazil, a place called Caracas, which is in the state on the southeast side near Belo Horizonte, and the actual, it is a working, actual people are at the monastery, the monks are there, but they do rent out rooms for people to go there because there's a lot of wildlife in that area, and in particular there's the maned wolf. A lot of people go there to see that, and that's some of the rooms there. Look a bit rough on the outside, but they're all perfectly great inside. So it's just, that's the Leas Macaw Lodge, right in the middle of nowhere, in Canudos, up in the northeast of Brazil. Very remote, no electricity at all there. So we have to fumble about with torches and whatever, and take our camera equipment into the local town a few miles away to actually charge our batteries up there. But quite safe. Another lodge right in Costa Rica, this one, Laguna de la Gata, and this is close to the Nicaraguan border, so another one that's fairly remote, but you can sort of, it's ideal for where it is, for getting and seeing some really extraordinary birds there, and hopefully we'll have time to see some of those. Another one there, that's in Guyana, up in the middle of Guyana, where we stay there for the lodge there. And this one is at Machu Picchu in the rainforest, in the, cloud forest up there. This looks like a bit of a town, but these are all individual cabins for people to stay in, and that's what they're like inside. So basically what I'm trying to get across is we don't just camp all the time in tents or anything like that. However, I have taken one group on a camping expedition just through the Tucn mountains in Guyana, and all this was set up for us. We had a group of people that went out and set up the camp for us while we were on a boat with a guide and a boatman actually taking us down, doing all our birding side of things and spotting the parrots here, there and everywhere. But they set up the camp, and then the following day they would dismantle the camp while we're out in the morning going to see the birds again, and then some way through the morning their boats would pass us, go on further down the river and actually set up another camp further down, so that we could reach there that evening and camp there. So we had a cook that came along with us, and to be honest, the food there was absolutely extraordinary for saying it was a camping expedition, and really amazing, really brilliant food, and better than some hotels in actual fact it was. And that's pretty much the group that actually got us physically down the river on that one. Another lodge in the Atlantic rainforest in Brazil, not far from Rio de Janeiro, and this is a place called Regua, and that is Reserva Ecológica de Guapiaçu, and this is a lodge that is pretty good. It's been on the go for quite some time, and it was one of the very first places that I actually did a tour from myself back in 2004, and the facilities there are extraordinary, and little swimming pool as well, which we do get at some of the lodges, but that's the view out of one of the rooms there, so looking out onto the Atlantic rainforest and the wildlife. And just on this one reserve there's in excess of 460 species of birds, which is absolutely, I mean, you wouldn't see them on one trip because they do migrate in and out from various places, but it's a great place to see a wide variety of birds, including wetland species, because of a 25-acre lake there, which used to be original, but then it was drained for cattle grazing, and then it was reinstated when Nicholas and his wife actually started to put this lodge together, and they've reinstated all the wetland areas, and the wildlife had just come back in again. Cayman crocodiles came from nowhere, capybaras came in from nowhere, and all those sort of things, since they've reintroduced tapir there and various things like that. So it's quite an extraordinary place where all these birds have actually, I don't know where they've been waiting to come in from, but when the habitat's there, and bearing in mind since 2004 they've planted in the region of 500,000 trees here as well, so that in itself is extraordinary to see that. So it's a very, very good project to go to, and I tend to go there, if not every year, most years on there. Locals, now obviously they live pretty basically in a lot of places where we go, and like here you see they here we're around, so they all come from all over the place, all the different tribes, and set up all their handicrafts for us to actually see and buy if we wanted to, and it's usually pretty cheap, and that's so we come back with suitcases full basically, of all sorts of stuff, and it does help the local economy. And that's what I try to do with all my trips. I employ local guides, local drivers, local boatmen, and obviously the lodges where we go have all got local people, even though a lot of the lodges are probably owned by either companies or big money people, that sort of thing, but they all employ local people. So it keeps a lot of the money local, which is really, really good, I think. And that's what proper ecotourism should be all about, to do that. And whilst we're doing that, we can enjoy things and actually see things, because they're not having to kill it to eat, and therefore there's more and more of the wildlife actually surviving, so we can go see. So they're the local people that we're helping. Right, driving round. That can be in a number of various different sort of vehicles. 4x4s in Guyana there, and we had some seating up on the back, and for the full 2.5 weeks that we were there last time, me and Paul were up on the back there all the time. Some of the rest of the group were inside, but we were up there, which meant that we're not opening doors to actually get out. We've got our cameras ready, and so as soon as we spot something as we're going down any of the lanes, they can pull over and we can take the shots. But unfortunately 4x4 sometimes get stuck as well, so we have to use others to actually pull us out, and that's also in Guyana. Other roads are like this through the Andes, very windy, very long, and then you get some of these roads. That's in Venezuela, close to the Brazilian border, and a lot of roads are like this as well. A lot of places where there aren't any roads at all, so we're going by boat, mostly motorised canoes, some by paddle canoes, depending where it is, but even the rivers have obstacles. So you've got all these to contend with. That's when you get the heavy rains, of course. They wash the actual trees down the river and block it to a certain degree. Right, parrots. I have got a lot to go through here, and hopefully I can get through it. But parrots, this is a red-capped parrot, Pinopsita pileta. Quite a rare parrot. They are in captivity a little bit, but they are very rare. They are a CITES 1 bird. But I used to keep these myself before I started doing tours and sold all my parrots completely, but I used to keep these. And so it was one of my first things was to go and see these in the wild. Unfortunately, the very first trip I went, I didn't find them. But from the experience of that and the knowledge I gained from that very first trip, it gave me an insight as to where to go the next time, and that's when I spent 45 minutes just filming a group of these on my own, just staying in the middle of the rainforest totally on my own. The rest of the group couldn't be bothered to wait, so they went off with the guide elsewhere, and I just stayed there. And fortunately, they came into the fruiting trees that I was hoping they were coming to. So that was, well, an amazing experience, really, just to get those. This is a male, by the way. The females don't have the red cap on. Brown-hooded parrots. Mostly in Central America, and these are in Costa Rica, and these are probably not in captivity, or certainly not in, they may be in captivity in the local countries throughout Central America, but not outside. Caker parrots, white-crowned parrots, Pionus, and these are some amazing ones really as well. Dusky parrot, that's Guyana. Blue-headed parrots, probably quite familiar with those. The others are very rare in captivity and very difficult to keep in captivity, so that's the reason for them not being there. But blue-headed, we tend to see lots of groups of those. You can see a youngster on the right hand side there. but sometimes we can get in really nice and close as well. Amazons, blue front and the yellow crown there. White fronted Amazons and yellow naped. Orange wings, yellow naped again, and red lord. This is the Bodings Amazon, or it was a subspecies of the festive Amazon, but now it's been separated into a separate species completely. Some people call it the northern festive parrot or Amazon, but this is found actually this one was photographed in the botanical gardens in Guyana, and there's a big group of them in there, which are about the easiest place to actually photograph them there. So blue front again and more. Orange wing and the festive again. White fronted and the festive. White fronted. Mealy Amazons. Mealies, most of these around the clay licks in Peru. We get to see them there, although there are in other areas as well, and flying around there as well. Golden cap conures, although this one is on the border of where the northern section of the golden cap parrots are in Brazil, and the Jandea parrots conures start. So I think these are probably a cross between the two, and I've done some writing about that in the past and asked other people for their opinions. And at one time a day they were actually classed as subspecies. The Jandea and the golden cap were classed as subspecies, but then they were separated into separate species. But I still think they interbreed, or at least a population has interbred in the past, and they seem to be very similar all in that area. This is a little bit further south, so these are proper, what I would class as proper golden capped conures. And we were told to go down a lane we were in a minibus, and we went down this lane, and it gave us precise instructions of where to go. And we went down this lane looking for a dead tree. We couldn't see anything at all, and we went all the way down this lane. So this is too far. So we turned around again, came back, and we stopped, and we looked round, and we said, well, there's a couple of dead trees there, maybe they're them. And they were very close to the edge of the road, and we weren't sure. And with that, while we were there stationed, we were already switched our engine off. In flew a flock of these. And then all the babies started popping their heads out the actual tree, and so we were just in the right place at the right time, just to get them come in to feed the youngsters, and then watch all the youngsters popping their head out. And in actual fact, okay. Moving on, this is in the valleys in Canudos, where we see the Leas Macaw lodge, and going into the valleys around there you get a lot of the blue-crowned conures. This is another blue-crowned conure, but a different subspecies, and this is in Argentina. This has got a full blue head, whereas the other one just purely had the blue crown as such. And these are cactus conures flying around. And what I always wanted to see with a cactus conure is, why did they call it a cactus conure? And that's probably why. Now you would think it would do some serious damage there. And in actual fact I have seen not just these with one eye, but several other parrot species with one eye in the wild, and in nests and nesting with other birds, breeding. So to a certain degree it's not too bad for them, but I would imagine they get all sorts of other injuries as well from these. But they do eat the cactus. These are Gendea conures, and like I say, they're further north in the northeast of Brazil on there. Brown-throated conures, they're all around as well, mostly in the northern sections. There's 14 subspecies of these, so I'm gradually working through all the different subspecies to get the different photographs. It's taking a while. Maroon-bellied conures in the Atlantic rainforest, again there. And that one's orange-fronted conures, not the peach-fronted, the orange-fronted. These are in the Pacific coastline of Central America. Same again. Olive-throated conures. They're in Costa Rica, where I've photographed this one. Nande conures. They can be in quite a number of places. I've seen them in Argentina and Brazil. Dusky conures there with a chestnut-fronted macaw on the right, or possibly know that as a Severe's macaw as well on there, but quite a number there. Madeira conures, or Payura snethlati on there. We were quite fortunate last year that I was told that a particular phenomenon happened at a time of year when the river was at such a level that they actually went onto the river to bathe. And they also eat the little crustaceans and things that are on the rocks as well. And they came in huge groups along there. So there was hundreds of them about. White-eyed conures, mitred conures, sulphur-winged conures. These are in Costa Rica and in Panama as well, but very limited sort of range for those. Patagonian conures. I was fortunate enough to be able to see these last year. Got very close to them. As I was saying to some people earlier, these are in the cliffs alongside beaches, and on the beach there's all the bikini-clad ladies and girls and men as well, not in bikinis but in trunks and whatever, just sunbathing away there. And we trundle down onto the beach with all our big cameras and everything and binoculars and whatever, so we're having to be very careful where we point our cameras. But we turned our back on all the bikinis and faced the cliff, and there was literally thousands along this cliff. Absolutely amazing, really, to see those. Every hole had a nest, and this is only one tiny section. They're just all the way along the cliff. Really incredible. Austral conures. That was a special journey to see those. Took us a 9-hour walk to actually there and back, 9 hours to actually get these and find them, and we're above the snow line in Argentina to actually get these when we were there last year. But got in fairly close. Blue-winged parrotlets, green rump parrotlets, dusky-billed parrotlets. These are not a parrotlet, these are an orange-chinned parakeet, one of the Brotugeris, and quite amazing little birds, just a little bit bigger than the parrotlets, but very feisty. You see the ones at the bottom there, he's just hanging on by his claw to the one above, and they were like that for quite some time. just hanging about there. And why he didn't just let go and fly, I don't know, because it would have been just as easy to do that. But like I say, the brown hooded parrots back down generally to the little orange chinned. Plain parakeets, yellow chevron parakeets, plain parakeet again. Quakers, see the huge nests that are there, and there's absolutely enormous ones in some of the palms that we get. I'm flicking through these rather rapidly. I don't know whether I'm going to cover everything, but if you want to stay on a little bit later, that's not a problem. Severe macaw again, the chestnut fronted. Blue and gold, or blue and yellow macaws. Red-bellied macaws. And red-shouldered macaws. Blue-winged macaws, or Illiger's macaws, as they're also known. And great greens, or buffon macaws. These are in Costa Rica. In actual fact, we were in a cafe in the middle of town getting our lunch, and just alongside the road outside, two pair of these actually landed in the tree there and eating the beach almonds in the tree just directly outside. And there was lots and lots of people in the town centre. In fact, there was a football match right next to it with all the spectators around. But they were just eating away and dropping the actual nuts onto everybody that was below. And occasionally people did look up, but they didn't really bother with them at all. Yellow-collared macaws. They're one of them, quite secretive actually where they are, but I've seen them a number of times, but sometimes very difficult to find. And of course hyacinths. Generally find those in the Pantanal, or they are in other areas of Brazil as well, and into Bolivia. But the Pantanal, and I've been there many, many times now, tend to see them every day, all day, morning, noon and night almost. Even during the day, they're in the trees around the lodges we stay in, and you can have them in groups up to about 20 at a time. So absolutely amazing, really. I had the privilege last year of following a reasonable sized group for a full day, and I just followed them round. They weren't bothered with me, and it was quite amazing how much play they did in a day, and not just feeding, you know. So it was really, really good to see. You never get tired of seeing these. And when they play like this. That's supposed to be a video. It's not going to work. Sorry. They were just hanging. Each one was just hanging by one claw on the wires there. I think they were only foam cables, and I didn't ask how many times they actually went through those cables. Scarlet macaws, which we get in quite a number of places. Red and green or green-winged macaws. On the clay licks as well. We had 137 of these on the clay lick at one time. Just watching them. Really amazing stuff. Spiders and snakes, right. That's a question most people tend to ask. I'd love to go, but I don't like spiders and snakes. Well, yes, they are there. Snakes. In all the time I've been going to South and Central America, I've probably seen a maximum of about 20 snakes. And a good percentage of those, probably 80–90%, have not been venomous at all. I haven't tested them, but yeah. They are there. And if you want to see them, I can get somebody that will show you them. And our guides will find them. they will find anything. If you want to see it, they will find it. And that, but normally, don't have an issue with this. There's a few about, a few snakes. Oh, this one is a rat snake. Not poisonous, but they can be quite aggressive. They go for you. They just lunge at you. But I've never had an issue with them at all. Caterpillars, all sorts of other insects there. And when you start to look at them, the colours and everything else, they too deserve photographs because they're such amazing things, really. Yeah, he was about the same size as the palm of my hand. Yeah, reasonable size, and that, but not dangerous at all. Yeah, dragonflies and damselflies, whatever, grasshoppers, huge, even bigger. This one was over 6 inches long. But the colours on these, and I couldn't catch one in flight, but the colours under his wings are red and yellow. It looks stunning as they fly, you know. Butterflies by the thousands. And that's one of our guides that went in to show what they do. But yeah, you've got to watch where you go to the toilet room. Yeah, always check under the seat. But that's me saying, this is what you've got to wear. Long trousers, long sleeve shirts, a hat, not just to protect you from the sun, but I find it is good for photography work as well. Shade you with that so you can see what you're doing. Yes, it is a little bit hot like this, but then when you've got the mosquito spray on the backs of your hands and around your neck, you're probably not going to get bitten. And I'm fortunate enough to be one of those people that doesn't get bitten too often. I used to be when I first started doing this, but not for a long while. And so I'm pretty good at that, but I always recommend always getting kitted up well on there. Tape machines. Now, what I mean by tape machines is some guides where you go looking for birds, they will play a tape to bring that bird in. And that works quite a lot with all sorts of different species of birds. But with parrots I've found it's hardly ever worked at all. But occasionally, and I don't like using them, but occasionally we'll just try them. Now, these are golden-tailed parrotlets, extremely rare, in the Atlantic rainforest in Brazil, going down into Argentina. Very rare. And one of our guides invited us to his own actual house, and he says, in the trees around my house when the fruit's ripe, these come in and feed there. So I said, well, that'll do for us. A bit of armchair bird watching's fine. Anyway, they did come in, but of course we're clicking away and they soon flew off again. And they flew just down the road, so we followed them down the road, and they're in this small forest there in the back, and we were getting some reasonably good photographs of them from different angles. This is when he was getting bored with us taking photographs, really. But what we did here, they disappeared up in the tree. Couldn't see them anymore. So our guide said, do you want me to do the playback? So well, with nothing to lose now, it could frighten them away, it could bring them in. Well, they flew in that close, you wouldn't believe. I had to back off because my camera was too close. I turned it right down to 150mm and it was still too close. That's what this is, 150mm on the lens rather than 600. And I had to back off to get it. And they came in that close. Only for a short time to investigate who was the other noise, but that's what happens. And a similar thing with these. These are blaze-winged conures in Brazil. Another rarity. They, at one time of day, they used to be the subspecies of the Maroon Bellied conure. But now they're separated into their own species, and you can just see the blaze wing there, and we were getting some reasonable shots again, but that is a good overall shot. So you've got a front view, a back view and open wing view of the birds there, so it gives you an overall idea of what they're like and why they're called the blaze winged conures on there. But our guide suggested, because these started drifting off again, and our guide suggesting playing back some tape. I said, yeah, that's okay. And he's looking through his tapes. I haven't got any. Okay. What have you got? He said, I've got some green-cheeked conures. Well, it's nothing like, but let's give it a try. So he put his tape on the ground and he played these green-cheeked conures. While they were down there on his tape machine, they were attacking it. In fact, it stopped working after a while because they ripped the speakers apart. So the green-cheeked conure does come close to their range, closer to Bolivia, and I'm hoping to go see them this year. So they obviously come into conflict with them at some stage, and this is what they do to them. They weren't impressed, but at the same time it enabled us to get some really good photos, because they weren't bothered with us at all then, and they were practically landing on us, and they were down at our feet going along and just attacking the tape machine then. Other birds. Okay, we get quite a lot of all the birds. Like I was saying before, the lodge in Brazil near Rio, 460 species of birds. Well, there's some stunning species out there, and I've seen an awful lot, but most trips we go on, yes, we do look for parrots, and that's what we're interested in, but we don't say that's not a parrot, let's move on. We still give everybody time to be able to photograph what they want to photograph, really. And if you want to stay a little while, photograph birds of other species, as well as take video or just observe them, see what they're doing, and fine, that's not a problem, we can do that. These are MacLeod penguins, which were in Argentina last year. There are Humboldt penguins that are on the west coast, on the Pacific coast near Peru, which we've seen in the past. Osprey. Everybody goes mad over osprey that comes to this country, because there's only, what, 4 or 5 pairs come here every year to breed. They're 10 a penny out there, really. You're going along the river, you just see them all catching fish all the way along the rivers. It's just amazing. So when people talk to me about osprey in this country, I get a bit blasé about it, really. It's sort of, yeah, it has got a little bit of interest, but not like these. Huge groups of wading birds. You've got jabiru storks, roseate spoonbills, egrets and herons. They're jabiru storks on a nest with an ibis there as well, the buff-necked ibis. Obviously the capybara was getting too close there, so we decided to flash him. Scarlet Ibis. This was in the Orinoco Delta in Venezuela a few years ago. Incidentally, Venezuela is probably not an option for taking anybody to at the moment. There's conflicts there, and I wouldn't take anybody to any area that's got a conflict at all. So I only take them to safe countries. But at the time, this was a good place to go to, and I would love to go back to Venezuela again, because it was a brilliant country, and you got them by the thousand there. Cockoi herons, similar to our grey heron here, a little bit bigger. That one's got an anaconda that he's just disposing of. Only a small anaconda, obviously. Ringed kingfisher. This one's about 1 foot tall, so fairly big. The biggest kingfisher in South America. There's 6 species of kingfisher there. Sunbitten. The name, forget. It's just gone straight off the top of my head there.
Hyacinth.
Yeah, Hyacinth. Yeah, obviously there with the baby. And they're close up. They call them the stinky turkey out there actually. And the main reason for that is that they are no good to eat. They're about the size of a turkey, but they're no good for the dinner plate. So that's why they survive. A Gami heron, probably one of the prettiest herons there. And very difficult to find. Tanagers, some stunning different tanagers. Euphonias, jays, woodpeckers, that's the acorn woodpecker. Toucanettes, this one's the female spot-billed toucanet and the male. Potus, these are the common potu, again with a baby. During the day they just stay like branches, solid all day, and then at night they're alive out eating the moths and everything else. Annies, rough-billed Annie, this one, with a frog. Oops. That's a Tinamou, and Caracara, crested Caracara. This one, quite a bit of a drab bird, but this is the female. That's the male. Guyana cock of the rock. And if you go to K2 Falls and stay there overnight, because a lot of people just go in and fly in, look at the waterfalls there, and then they fly out again. But we actually stayed for 3 nights, and they are in the grounds around there, and we got them all the time. So they came out in the open. In a lot of places, these are in dense woodlands and forests, and you don't get very good shots of them. Toucans, Keel-Billed toucan, this one. Toco toucan, or the Guinea bird. What a lot of people don't know is toucans, although they look really, really nice, they're predators. They actually eat hyacinth chicks and any other chick that can get their beak on. And eggs. I've seen them getting eggs out of the nest as well. King vultures. Quetzals. Resplendent quetzal. These are an absolutely stunning bird. And to watch that go in through a nest hole and come out again with that all intact is quite amazing. Another drab bird, a flycatcher. Thing with this one, he has a little surprise. I was going to say up his sleeve, but actually it's on his head. I just so happened to be in the right place at the right time for that one, and just clicked away and kept clicking, and just got quite a number of shots there, and just stunning. Canopy towers. Yeah, there are some at some of the lodges, some of the walkways that you can go on. Some of them are fairly high. Get good views. Depending what time of day you go on them, depends how good you sort of see whatever bird you're looking for. But some of the towers are like this one. Starts here and ends up there. 120 feet up. But from there we had macaws flying round us and all sorts of other things. So it was quite a good vantage point up there. And in actual fact, at this particular one, there were some white-bellied cakes that were in the distance, but they came in really close. And once again, I had to reduce the zoom on my camera to actually get these. Because they're just coming so close, it's unbelievable. They're probably used to the canopy and used to seeing people on the canopy. And the people on the canopy aren't going to do them any harm. So this is what happens. And they just got closer and closer. Same with these. Crimson bellied conures. They came in, same canopy, same tower there. And then we came across this one in Venezuela. It was built by the BBC some time ago. Yeah, when you get up there, the handrail's not very good. You don't hang on to it. But this is not for parrot watching. This goes up 25 metres, but it's also 25 metres to that tree at the back of it there. Sorry. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. And this is what's in the nest there. Harpy Eagles. Just about the largest eagle in the world. Its talon grip is as strong as a lion's bite. They catch monkeys and sloths. We didn't see any of those being fed to the youngster, but we see lots of other things being fed to them. I was up that tower for 3 hours, just taking film and photos. You can see his talons there. Sounds a bit out of sync with that. But yes, that does sound quite piercing. What the BBC didn't inform us, or didn't tell our guide, said it was okay for us to go up the tower. What he didn't say was they wore Kevlar and they wore motorcycle helmets to go up there. I was up there in, well, pretty much what I've got on, you know. And I didn't know they attacked you as well. And they did attack them, and it's on film, on the BBC film of them attacking them. Now, I think they did it at a little bit different time of year, and the chick was pretty well advanced by the time we see it, fortunately. So they didn't come after us. Other wildlife. This was in my shower. And they tend to get in there occasionally, but harmless. But there's lots of different frogs and lizards, and the old tree frog in Costa Rica, turtles about, crocs and caiman, otters. This is the neotropical otter, capybaras, squirrel monkeys, howler monkeys and spider monkeys, brocket deer, giant anteaters, coatis, tapirs, sloths. That was actually crossing a road. Guanacos, southern right whales. We did a trip just to actually go out and see these while we were there. Elephant seals, orcas or killer whales, maras with youngster as well. And this one, a specialty. I asked our guide in Argentina last year, I said, are there any deer in this region? He said, there are. Only one. It's called a poodoo, and it's the smallest deer in the world. He said, but in all the 30 years I've been actually guiding, he said, I've never seen one. I spotted it. And our guide was amazed. So I had to send him the photos afterwards, but he did actually see it as well. But we got him fairly close to that, which was amazing. It's smaller than the muntjac deer here. And this. We're going down the road in Argentina and there's this huge dinosaur. And apparently, not too many years ago, they found the bones of the largest dinosaur in the world in Argentina, and they replicated it and rebuilt it life size, and it's just along the road. Giant otters, river otters, eating the fish, getting really close. We've seen those in numerous places now, and they seem to be getting more and more common, which is really great. That's a youngster, and they're all youngsters as well. Jaguars. Quite rare. I've not seen them many times, but when you do see them, they are stunning. This was a trip to Brazil last year, and we see 3 different individuals. We're on boats in the river, and this is just on the riverbank itself. They're pretty calm. They're used to people being around on the river, but I wouldn't want to get off and go test it. Am I struggling for time?
No, you're okay.
Conservation projects. While we're going round on our trips, I like to visit conservation projects. Usually parrot ones or parrot related. Sometimes just land preservation projects, but ultimately they conserve and preserve the parrots in the region for the conservation. This is the grey-breasted parakeet or conure up in the northeast of Brazil. It's doing exceptionally well now with the people that are looking after it there. They've installed a lot of artificial nest sites, and I've had the privilege of going there a few times now to actually see those in the wild and see them in the nest boxes, and they all pile in there at night. There might be about 16 or so of them in there on an evening. Another one we go to is the Arrow Project in Costa Rica. They breed and release great green macaws, the Buffon's macaw and the Scarlet Macaw, back into the wild. These are from confiscated birds that are taken from people that have got them illegally. The government take them to the Arrow Project for reintroduction. Now, not all of them are able to be reintroduced because they've either had wings clipped or various other injuries. And so they put them into a breeding program, and they actually breed them there, and then their youngsters are released into the wild in groups. I was there one year, and we actually went into this aviary with all these birds there, and then the next year they've been taken to the release site in Manzanillo, which is near the Panama border in Costa Rica, and this is the same group I've photographed after they've actually been released into the wild. Of course, they do provide supplementary feeding for them and things like that, so they do stay around for quite some time, and they're monitored all the time they're there, but they do have gone on to breed, so it's pretty good. But it's an ideal place for taking some superb shots as well. Scarlet Macaws, like I say, the Arrow Project also deal with these. This is the release site for those, which is in the north in a place called Punta Islita. That's where you can get in and see these flying around there. And they're on the supplementary feeders there as well. Arara Azul, which is the Leas Macaw. Now, this is Kilmer taking details from a farmer of the corn that's been destroyed in the fields. And this is what happens. Now, in the past, Leas macaws have been shot for taking the corn. So people, or one of the conservation projects for the Leas macaws is actually subsidising the farmers with corn to actually give them corn to replace what the macaws have destroyed. Otherwise, the farmers just shoot them. When you go to that area, you should see that it is a very, very poor area. The farmers are really struggling. It's a difficult area to farm in the first instance. The soil is really, really poor. In fact, mostly just sand. And Mostly of the time these will take Lycuri palms, but because of the subsistence farmers have struggled, they've taken the Lycuri palms as well, and therefore not left much for the Leas Macaws, who have then gone on to eat their corn, so they now get the corn subsidy. And when these macaws come into a field, they decimate the whole lot. There's no two ways about it. They come in and get every corn cob going. That's it, gone. I went there again last year, and we came across a field where there was 100 Leas Macaws just eating all the corn cobs in the field, and that's it, all gone. You know, they just either eat them or partly eat them and destroy them, basically. Are we struggling, or are we still going on? Tourism, right. Obviously, it's nice going to South and Central America, but it's also nice to see some of the sights as well. This is K2 Falls. Highest single drop waterfall in the world, 741 feet drop. Okay, that's me above it. That wasn't my photograph, actually. I didn't take. It's not a selfie.
Not a selfie.
No. But Julie in the group, she took a photo of me. Yes, I've got a head for height, so that's not too much of an issue for me. But yeah. But there are other things in Jujuy in Argentina. The beautiful scenery there, it's tremendous, and that's not all vegetation in the background. That's rock colour. All of those are different rocks, and it's quite amazing. Even the green is like a copper in the rocks. Quite stunning. Sorry. This is going through from Argentina to Chile. Instead of flying over, we decided to go through the lakes over the Andes, and you go by one lake and then you get a bus for a short distance, then through another lake, then a short bus ride, and another lake, and then a short bus ride to get from Argentina to Chile. It's far better. It takes a little bit longer than flying, but it's far better scenery going through the Andes that way. Similarly, we went up in the Andes in Peru. Machu Picchu, always a favourite for a lot of people to go there. Fortunately, this year when I went, hardly anybody about. Nowadays, I went there in 2016, and it was horrendous. The queues outside, and that were extraordinary, really, which is a bit of a shame. There was supposed to be limiting numbers there, but that's how it was. And groups, obviously we've got our groups. That was the first one I ever went on, Brazil in 2000. Still got the same hat. It's been on every trip with me, apart from one. I forgot it in Argentina last year. But that hat's been with me all the way. Groups at Regua and in the boats in Peru, Costa Rica. But the main groups we like to see are the macaws. And these are red-bellied macaws just eating away at a trunk there. The hyacinth macaws in groups. That's in the lodge grounds, and that's at siesta time. Some people, because it's really hot, so some people do, and they tell you to go for siesta during the day, middle of the day, because there's not going to be any birds about. But I tend to go out, and in the shadows and shade of places, you can find some of the birds there, in particular those. On the clay licks, got all the macaws there, and the scarlets and blue and yellow macaws there. And one green winged macaw up in the top right. I'll cut it short, sorry. Yeah, and there's lots and lots of other parrots on the clay licks there. Well, that's one of the hides, which is a floating hide opposite a clay lick, so you get really close up to the hide there, to the clay lick, and that's us sat in the hide watching the clay lick there. And this is where you see all the red and green or green-winged macaws there. That's another video, but I'm gonna... There's some chocolatas calling in the background, so that's not the normal call of the green-winged macaws. But usually in the morning you get the smaller parrots in first, and then when the green wings come in, they frighten everything away. So they take hold of the clay lick themselves, and that's what they're going to have. Leas Macaws, going back to those again. Big groups of those. Now back in the early 90s, I think it was 80s, 90s, there was only supposed to be about 60 to 80 of these macaws. Since, there's about 5 different conservation projects going on there, with habitat, with corn subsidies and everything else that's going on, and the numbers have built up to around about 1,400 now. I go to a particular place where you can see reasonably large groups of these. The Leas Macaws in the morning, when we stop at the Leas Lodge, we're on top of the sandstone cliffs there, and we go to a particular place to watch them come up in the morning. And like I was saying, there's around about 1,400 Leas Macaws in the wild. In this one place, we get between 400 and 600 come up in the morning within the first hour. And they're just coming up in 1s and 2s, small groups, big groups, and just coming across. And it's just amazing just to stay there. So we go up really early, about 4 o'clock in the morning, go there, so we're ready there for daylight, and watching these macaws come up in the morning. And it's such a stunning sight, absolutely phenomenal to actually see that sort of thing. And I go there time and time again now, because that just really gets the hairs on the back of my neck rising. It is stunning, just is. No words for it, really. So I've got a stand downstairs. I've got a few more trips involved this year. I'm doing a 5-week trip to Brazil, which is split into separate weeks. So people could join me for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3, 4, or even the 5. Entirely up to you, and it doesn't matter which week or weeks you join me for. And I've got various other trips on the go. Come down there, speak to me, see if anything takes your fancy that way. I've got a new book out, my very first, Parrots of the World. $14.99, pretty good in that respect for value. There's about 170, 180 colour photos in there. It's on pretty good paper, so it's reasonable. Come and have a look at it, see what you think. Tell me your views, really. And basically, cheers. Thank you.